Okay guys, I want to do a couple of things. One is I want to talk to you guys about correlation, scatter plots, and normal distributions. I think the first thing is doing a linear regression. So I have some data here. I have and I have another video that shows you how to enter in data. But in L1 I have 0 through 6, and then L2, if I remember correctly, these are like college tuitions at a very cheap college, but cheap not as an inexpensive. Tuition's a lot more money nowadays, but this is old data. And so this data, if I wanted to create a scatter plot, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my y equals and clear that out. And then I can choose plot 1 by using the cursor, or another way I could hit second, y equals, and that pulls up my stat plot menu. And so what I want to do is I want to create a scatter plot. And so what I can do is if I turn that on, then I go through the various settings. I want a scatter plot, that's that one there. L1 is my X value, and L2 represents my Y values. And then I'm just going to use a little box there, and I want them to be blue. And so that's it, I'm done, it's on. Now for the graph, in order for it to fit, I'm going to hit option number 9. Zoom stat, and what it does is it automatically fits the window to the values associated with that. So I'm just going to hit enter, and then we'll talk about that. Let's look at stats. Let's look at my list. Notice that my X values are from 0 to 6. Notice that my Y values are from about 6,500 all the way up to 8,400. And so when I hit that zoom stat, what it does is it automatically goes in and adjusts the X and Y values accordingly. A little bit before 0, a little bit after 6. That was the domain of the of my L1, and then the range is L2, which is a little bit below the 6,500 and a little bit above the 8,400. And so let's go back to graph. So I've got this scatter plot, and it looks almost like a linear regression, right? There could be a pretty strong correlation, and so what I would want to do is do what we call a linear regression. Now to do the linear regression, I'm going to hit stat, and I'm going to go to calculate. Now because it looks like a line, I'm going to hit option number 4 for linear regression. And it's this is like the mx plus b, but the calculator puts ax plus b. I really wish Texas Instruments would change that to the variable m, but whatever, we'll just go with it. And so what am I choosing for my X list? L1. What am I choosing for my Y list? L2. Frequency list, we don't have a frequency list here. Do I want to store this? In other words, do I want to store the equation that the calculator is going to calculate and graph it? I do. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on vars, which is short for variables, and then I'm going to choose Y vars, and we're going linear functions are functions, so we're going to choose option number 1 for function. And then I can choose which location I want to store this in. If I choose Y1, what I'm telling the calculator to do is calculate this linear regression and then store those values in Y1, and then it'll automatically graph it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to calculate that. Boom. Now, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. This gives me my equation. In other words, the slope, A, is 284.42, blah, 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 blah. And then my y-intercept is 6538. If I go to graph, boom, I have my points and I have my line going through there. Now, linear regression, and I'll show you how we could do that by hand with lists and stuff, but it's a mathematical way that draws the line in such a way that it's very close to each one of these dots. Okay, so there is a precise algorithm that we follow to construct this line. That's another video. But what I wanted to show you guys is that when I did that, I don't know how strong of a correlation there was. And the reason I don't know how strong of a correlation there was is because I don't know the r or r squared value. All right. So what I need to do is if I click on mode, on some of the newer calculators, if you go down to Stats Diagnostics, which is down here, notice that I have mine turned off. I did that deliberately so I could show you guys how to turn it on. If I turn it on and hit enter, now when I go back, and I choose stats, and I go to calculate my linear regression. And I'm not going to store it because I don't need to. I've already stored it. I've already stored it. This will actually calculate the same values, but then I have my R and my R squared values, which are like the correlation coefficients. In other words, the closer I am to +1 on this, the closer I am to what we call a positive correlation. And so 0.98 and 0.96, those are very strong correlations, okay? Like I said, we want to be very close to 1, or -1 if we have a negative correlation. And so that's how you do that on your calculator.